Well, good afternoon and welcome everybody. My name is Darren Coomber from the Research Innovation Precinct at Trobe University, and I'm joined today by my colleague from CSIRO, Deb Krause, and in the background, Olga Minchin and Lauren Giusti, who are working some magic in making sure this is all running smoothly. We welcome you and we thank you for joining us from across Australia, New Zealand, Asia Pacific and Europe. And if I've missed out your part of the world, I apologise. La Trobe University and CSIRO acknowledge that this event and our participants are located on the lands of many traditional custodians in Australia. We recognise their ongoing connection to the land and we value their unique contribution to the university, to CSIRO and to wider Australian society. Our speakers today live and work on the lands of the Wurundjeri, the Bunurong and the Wadawurrung peoples, and I pay my respects to Indigenous elders past and present of these lands. La Trobe University, through its Research and Innovation Precinct, brings together industry, researchers, students and the community to create new products and services in areas of agriculture, food and environment, health and wellbeing and digital transformation. CSIRO is Australia's national science agency and is a leader in delivering research and development expertise to industry and particularly in the food sector. La Trobe and CSIRO are partnering to deliver a series of webinars exploring the future of food and agriculture and opportunities that are driven by advances in technology, industry challenges and consumer needs. I'm pleased to co-host this 7th event in our series and the 3rd that will look at the topic of food waste. And I'll pass over to Deb Krause now. Thanks, Deb.
Thanks, Darren. Yes, look, I'm Deb Krause from CSIRO and also extremely pleased to welcome you all here today. So we've had fabulous feedback to date from our first 2 food waste webinars and delighted to have 3 excellent speakers here today, all working to deliver real world solutions that bring food products to market from not so perfect produce. After each presentation, we will have a short period for questions. So feel free to add your questions at any time into the Zoom Q&A function. I'd like to welcome our first speaker, Danyang Ying. Danyang's a colleague of mine from CSIRO Ag and Food, also based in Werribee, Victoria. So Danyang has a PhD in material science and process engineering and leads the food engineering team in CSIRO Ag and Food. His research interests include food extrusion, stabilisation, microencapsulation, and delivery of bioactives for functional food and feed applications, and transformation of horticulture byproducts into functional food ingredients and value-added products. Today, Danyang is going to show us how these research skills have been applied to minimise food loss and capture value in horticulture. So over to you, Danyang.
Okay, thank you. I need to share my screen. Oops. Who can share the screen? I cannot share the screen. Okay, now it's good. Can you see my screen properly? That's good. Okay, good afternoon. My name is Danyang Ying. I'm the senior research scientist in food CSIRO, agriculture and food. I'm very pleased to share some of our results in our effort to minimizing food loss and capturing value for the fruit and the vegetable industries. So I will start with a brief background on why food loss is an issue, and then we'll focus on the challenges that Australian fruit and the vegetable industry is facing, and our approach to reduce the food loss. As you know that we are facing global food security challenges. There are more than 100 million people living in hunger nowadays. But at the end, a third of the food produced is lost in the supply chain. By 2050, global population will reach 9 billion. And there will be estimated 50% food shortage. That's because of the reduced arable land and also global climate change. If without doing anything, and we are facing a bigger food security issues. In Australia, as well as globally, fruit and vegetable industry are the sector with largest food loss. So that's why CSIRO is focusing on this fruit and vegetable loss as our initial focus. So to reduce the fruit and vegetable loss and value addition, there are two major challenges we're facing. First, the challenge is the geographical scattering of this biomass. And the second is the perishable nature of the fruit and the vegetable biomass. So in next few slides, I will use a few examples to show you how we handle these challenges. To tackle the first challenge, we conducted an extensive survey and mapped the food loss in Australia in the fruit and the vegetable industries. So this slide shows a map of fruit and vegetable production and the loss in Australia. And we also developed a supply chain model to find out what is the most economical location for the collections and for the processing of this biomass. We proposed so-called regional food processing hub. And these are few places we propose a food processing hub from north to south, from east to west. A food processing hub is a centralized processing facility. And the hub allows for processing of those biomass collected from regionals and turn into stable food ingredients. And also can develop prototype products for test marketing. Second challenge is the perishable nature of fruit and vegetable biomass. So here is an example on what we did for the value addition to vegetable waste. As you will hear next from Raquel, another speaker, and the vegetable are highly nutrient but perishable. Around 30% of edible vegetable mass is lost in the farm, not being harvested, either due to the cosmetical non-perfections, or either they are too small or too big. So can we do something about that? Of course, we can transform those vegetable biomass into nutrient-dense and shelf-stable product. And here shows some options. First, by drying, we can turn the vegetable into powder, and we can use this powder for other foods, such as soups, or add into baked products, or even like put into the coffee. And we can also add this powder into extruded product, such as snacks and breakfast cereals. And Raquel will talk about the snacks in more detail later. And also we can transform this biomass into fermented products, or we can extract some bioactives from this vegetable biomass. All these processing options will be followed by a pre-process. The pre-processing is to stabilize the vegetable bioactives. So why pre-processing is important? So here is the example. You know that in broccoli, one of the valuable component or bioactive is called sulforaphane. And sulforaphane is transferred from glucoraphanin, is one of the existing component. After the vegetable cell wall is broken, it will start an enzymatic reaction, transform this glucoraphanin to sulforaphane. We know sulforaphane is preferred bioactive, is very valuable and have a lot good antioxidant, anti-cancer, and anti-inflammatory properties. So we would like to have these good bioactives. But on the other hand, there is a sulforaphane-nitrile. That's the toxic component. So we don't want that to happen. So that's why we needed to do some pre-treatment to maximize the sulforaphane, but to minimize the sulforaphane-nitrile. That's why we needed to do some science to understand each vegetable. They have their own enzymatic systems. We needed to understand their system, then we can maximize the good bioactives and to minimize those non-preferable components. So here we have this, after we process, and we can get these shelf-stable powders and extruded snacks. And here is the product specification of vegetable powders and extruded snacks. So you can note that broccoli powder contains 30% protein, and which is equivalent to the milk powder. But also broccoli powder has 30% dietary fiber. So someone will say it's really, it's a very nutrient dense product. And next example is apple pomace. Apple pomace is a byproduct from juice production, currently used as low-value animal feed and landfill. So if you take a look at the partitioning of the nutrient component, and we can find that after juicing, which takes away majority of the water and the sugar, and 96% dietary fiber and 85% of protein are left in the pomace. So we can confidently say that apple pomace is more healthy than the juice. So again, the first step is the stabilization step. So to inactivate the enzymes and also to kill the microbial, to stop the degradation of microbial degradations. After stabilization, the apple pomace can be used for wet applications or dried into powders and then used to make other product. For wet apple pomace, it can be turned into stable paste or added into yogurt or smoothie, jam or sauce. For dried powder, and we can put this dry powder into bakery product, for example, biscuits, muffins, and lunch bars, or extrude it into snacks or breakfast cereals. The nutritional value of such product is very high. For example, 1 serve of extruded snack, 50-gram snack serving size, is equivalent to 3 apples. And 1 muffin of 100 grams is equivalent to 4 apples. And 1 biscuit of 35 grams equivalent to 1.5 apples. So it is a really highly nutritious product. And next, I will present a few slides. This is because I just want to give a message that not all processed food is bad. So here we have give example shows the extruded apple pomace had a significantly higher antioxidant values compared with the non-extruded sample during the in vitro digestion. So as you can see that in that figure with EX, that means we compare 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 samples, and with X that's extruded with different moisture content. In that dotted red line square, and that's the antioxidant properties. And so you can see that extruded product has significantly higher antioxidant capacity compared with the non-extruded product. And also this slide shows that the extrusion increased the soluble fibers in the apple pomace. So that's increased the solubility of the apple pomace powder. So in summary, we talked about 2 challenges to reduce food loss in Australian fruit and vegetable industry. One is scattering around in Australia. And with this challenge, we proposed the regional food processing hub. And one of the, later Raquel will talk about it, that's one of the hub in Melbourne region. And the second challenge is perishable nature of the fruit and vegetable. So we will need to have a stabilization for the start, and then we can transform the fruit and vegetable biomass into a shelf-stable and highly nutritious ingredient or products. Thank you very much for your attention.
Right, thank you, Dan Yang. There's a couple of questions that have come in. I might get you to answer a few of them online afterwards. There's one that's quite technical that I'll get you to work through. When you're setting up or thinking of setting up regional processing hubs, are you able to take mixed food waste sources, or are you relying on a monoculture? So somebody who's just got apples or just looking at broccoli, can you mix everything together, or how will that work if you've got different farms producing different things?
Yeah, the idea is that we'll collect the biomass and then process them. Of course, if we want to make the product is highly tasty and highly valuable, and we definitely needed to have a separate collections. But it depends on the final product we are targeting. If we mix together, as I mentioned, all different fruit have different ecosystem itself, like all the enzymatic reactions will be different. if we want to maximize the value of the individual fruit and vegetable, and we have to treat individual fruit, vegetable individually. For example, the stabilization step for different vegetable will be different. For different fruit, it will be different.
Okay, and are you seeing interest in vertical farming, having this type of manufacturing next to vertical farming? Is there any interest that you're seeing in that area?
I think that vertical farming will be much easier to to handle than those extensively farming in the wild. So definitely that will be much easier, and also I guess will be less of the loss.
Yeah, great. And there's a couple of other questions that I might get you just to answer as well online, and there's a couple of comments there as well that people have got of some other similar products, which is fantastic to see. But Deb, I might pass over to you for the next speaker. Thanks.
Thanks, Darren. And thanks, Dan Yang. Great presentation. So I'm very looking forward to welcoming our second speaker, Raquel Sade from NutraV. She's also based here in Werribee, Victoria. So Raquel's the Chief Executive Officer of NutraV, which is a collaboration between Fresh Select, a leading fresh produce supplier with over 60 years of farming experience, and CSIRO. So through her presentation, I'm sure you'll see how passionate Raquel is about reducing on-farm food waste and finding fun and innovative ways for Australians to have more access to delicious vegetables. So over to you, Raquel.
Thanks, Deb, and thank you, Darren, as well for the opportunity to speak. And lastly, I'd like to thank Dan Yang, because you've shared so much wonderful intel that that I was going to present as well. So we're really aligned here, which is just wonderful. So just want to make sure that we're all, yes, and that's all good for everybody. You can see the screen. Has that come up? Just a thumbs up, Deb, great. So wonderful, thank you for having me, everyone. As Deb said, my name's Raquel Sade. I'm the CEO of NutraV, and essentially we consider ourselves farmers at nature. We've come from a background of, as Deb said, 60 years of farming, and our mission as a business is to see our farmers and what they grow. If they're planting, their vegetables in a day, that 100% of them can be yielded from their crops, and that's very much our mission. So our approach to our food upcycling and food manufacturing is that we want to see everything planted, harvested in an upcycled nature, and be able to take responsibility for the food waste that our own farm and our industry generates. So that's the solution that we're trying to come up with. I always like to start off with what really frames all of our thinking and our decision making with whatever we do. So we are, as a business, trying to reduce food waste and help Australians consume more vegetables. The journey started about 3 years ago for myself, but probably about 5 or 6 years ago for Fresh Select, where they were working hand in hand with the CSIRO and trying to find solutions of how to deal with that on-farm food waste. Just to give you a bit of perspective, and Dan Yang did touch on this, that soft vegetables and outside vegetable farming can actually be up to 20 to 30% of whatever they plant can't be harvested, right? So that's a significant amount of loss that's generated on farm that doesn't have a home. So quite often these vegetable ingredients will either go to secondary processing or manufacturing that doesn't have a lot of value. So animal feed, or very much sown back into the land. So this is produce that farmers have actively spent resources, time and energy growing to be able to deliver to Australians. And so if we're able to find a way to repurpose those vegetables that don't make it to supermarkets, we believe that we're not only servicing the customer being able to eat those vegetables, but also give back to the farmers, because they've put all that time and effort into growing the vegetables as well. So I probably have already started a little bit about the why. So I've mentioned earlier that our current supply chains, and I say 20% modestly, but at different times of the year, it can really vary in how much vegetable waste can be generated. So you might have a gorgeous peak summer where you've got perfect conditions, and you might have 5 or 6% yield, 5 or 6% loss, I should say, excuse me. But then on the opposite side of that, you might have a classic Australian seasonal winter or summer that has unexpected rainfall, unexpected conditions, and before you know it, you're up to 30 or 40%. So as I mentioned, those are seedlings that the farmers have already put all their time and effort into really harvesting and growing. So what Fresh Select did is essentially took matters into their own hands and said, how can we be part of the solution? What can we do? And that's when we knocked on the door of our good friends at CSIRO and said, let's develop a strategy together to be able to harvest 100% of crop yield and find a solution for that food waste, and ultimately get Australians more vegetables, because I think the latest stats have said that both maybe 9 in 10 Australians don't eat their recommended daily intake of vegetables, and that includes kids as well. So a little bit more about crop loss and waste on Australian farms. So this statistics have come out of the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and it just shows you that 22% of that crop loss is happening pre-harvest. So there are multiple parts of the supply chain that we see that we need to target. Both of that is before it's even been picked. So if the vegetables aren't good, we don't pick them. And then also after and during harvest, which is what Dan Yang was talking about in that packaging line. If we're processing halves for coals, for example, and I should backtrack just for a second and say that our parent company, Fresh Select, they are a large farming company. They supply Coles with 22 lines of vegetables across Australia. So they're one of Coles' largest vegetable suppliers. So naturally, with that incredibly large supply chain, you will have waste from that supply chain. So that is, I guess, the background of that problem that they were trying to solve on their own farms. And most of the time it is from environmental factors. So what has been a Nutriv solution, and these are very much photos that I've taken myself from our farm. What we're trying to do is redesign how our farms and farms locally around us harvest their crops. So what most people probably don't realize is that farmers can actually go in and sweep their land 2 or 3 times to get that perfect size broccoli or that perfect size cauliflower, and still with 20 or 30% left on the land that aren't quite right. So our strategy is let's wait for everything to grow that little bit more. We'll get the harvesters to actually go out onto the farm and take 100% of the crop. Everything that's perfect can go to the supermarkets and to our wonderful consumers, and the not so perfect can come to me at Nutriv, and I'll find a way to process them and to turn them into food for Australians to enjoy. So believe it or not, trying to find the right drying technology to take broccoli or a cauliflower or a pumpkin, for example, in from a raw form into a vegetable powder was actually quite challenging. There's a lot of fiber and all the good things that we love about broccoli and our vegetables, which is what makes it quite challenging to dry. But also at a drying technique or drying technology that ensures that the cost that you're putting into it doesn't make the good that you're making at the end of the day cost prohibitive for a retail food market. That's a really big point that I'd like to make. So us going on that journey, trying to find the right drying and extrusion technology to deal with that food waste, to make sure that it is commercial at the end of the day, was a really big part of our journey. We're really proud to have partnered with an Australian manufacturer locally to help us with that drying solution and to meet the need of our very specific products. So I'd like to acknowledge that where we've done all this, I guess, great background and research and almost sense checking of the technology on our farm, farm yields and loss isn't just unique to Fresh Select. It's a problem across the entire of Australia. So we see this solution being expandable to many farms across Australia. And naturally, even with our own products, which I'll share with you a little bit later, we have used produce from our partner farms around us and paid them for that secondary stock, so the farmer gets that value back. So this is a nice, I guess, description to tell you about the 7 nice looking broccoli you see in my animation. At the top is what we believe will go to the supermarkets, while the 3 kind of big ones, small ones underneath there are what will come to Nutrivie. We'll lock in the nutrients, turn them into vegetable powders, and essentially all of that vegetable comes to the same spot. And that's the consumer. So one example that I'd like to give is that, in the year 21-22 financial year, Fresh Select actually sold 4.8 million kilos worth of broccoli to Coles supermarkets. So that's a lot of broccoli, right? But if you remember earlier, I mentioned that 20 to 30% of that will have stayed in the land and go to waste. So if you've got good maths, you'll probably be able to do it on the top of your head, but I'll tell you that 1.2 million kilos of vegetables were left behind. Now, if I can go ahead and dry that, that represents 10 million serves of vegetables. So it just shows you the opportunity just with one supply chain and one farmer, and how much of an opportunity there is left behind to be able to be feeding more people and diverting that food waste, and being able to serve Australian families, more vegetables. So it's a really compelling story when you sort of see how big that opportunity is here. So to tell you a little bit about what our capability is and what we've done is we've created Nutrivie to, I guess, be the brand that houses the vegetable powders. So this is a mock-up. It's not on shelf yet, these vegetable powders, but essentially we often get asked, well, what do you do with them? This is a serve of vegetables in 7 grams of powder. Dan Yang already spoke quite perfectly about the level of protein and the dietary fiber. So there is so much goodness in these vegetable powders that can be a really convenient way to add vegetables to both children's diets or fussy eaters. I think that for Nutrivie, there's a really big opportunity both from a business to business and business to consumer opportunity here. So I think from a consumer point of view, I can see mums putting a spoonful of broccoli powder in their bolognese sauce, but I can also see kids baking with it with their banana bread on the weekend and hiding a serve of cauliflower powder that you can't see, and you're getting an extra serve of vegetables. But at the same time, Nutrivie are working with food manufacturers and large food companies to be able to really change the dial with better for you food options. So what does it look like to, replace a little bit of flour with vegetable powder in, the likes of a wrap or something that you're used to seeing, or a loaf of bread. So I think that there are a lot of opportunities for us to change the dial with sustainability, or move the dial as well as move the dial with vegetable consumption. A lot of the time when Nutrivie and we speak to food manufacturers, they say, oh, that's great, Raquel, but do you have an example for me? How can we be sure that it's going to work? So we took a leap of faith, and with the great work that we did with the CSIRO, created our own snacking line, which is Nutrivie Goodies. So these are available at Coles Australia-wide. So what we've done is taken our vegetable powders, being broccoli, cauliflower and pumpkin, and mix it with other dry ingredients to be part of an extruded formula with some delicious toppings. So if you're used to eating, broccoli with, or I should say cauliflower with salt and pepper on the dinner table, your vegetable snack is going to be your moreish late afternoon. You feel like getting the bag of chip out, but instead of going for your regular potato chips, these might just be a slightly healthier option because there's 2 serves of vegetables in every pack. We've got a lot of innovation that's happening in the background, and some new formulations that are going to be with Coles later in the year. And we really hope that we can continue to change the dial with, delivering more food off that farm, and also being able to feed Australians more vegetables as well. So I hope I've maybe provoked some thoughts in the group, and It's been a pleasure talking to you. We've also got some really wonderful projects that are in the background with the CSIRO and some more patent ingredients to come. Dan Yang hinted at some microencapsulation and some fermentation work that we're doing with them with the CSIRO, which is really fantastic. But at this point in time, the vegetable powders are quite close to be launching a consumer B2C line, but our vegetable snacks are currently on the market. So I just wanted to say thank you very much. If you've got any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me personally. There's my email address there. But yeah, look forward to connecting with some of you in the future, and I'll stop sharing my screen now. Thank you.
Thank you, Raquel. And when do you think the powders will be available?
Oh,
have you got a launch date for me that you can announce?
We don't have a launch date yet, but I can tell you that the samples are everywhere and the packaging's being pretty much finished as we speak. So I really hope we're a couple of months off now, because I think there's just such a, it's an important need. And every time I speak to people about our initiative, they say, where can I get it? Where can I buy it from? So yeah, there's definitely a need out there. So hopefully it's not far away.
And do you see the same need from the B2B world? Are they as excited as this is a new ingredient, or is this going to be a consumer
I think that
novelty?
So it's interesting. We're seeing lots of interest both from, some really large food manufacturers. And can I say, even pet food manufacturers are saying, we love our pets. We want to be able to give them great dietary fiber, which, if you're a pet lover, I mean, I completely understand. So we're really, quite, it's been quite broad, the interest that we're getting from both food and pet manufacturers. So I think perhaps both, which makes us as a small team very busy, which is lots of fun.
Yeah, and your focus at the moment is on those 3 vegetables. Is there anything else within the Fresh Select chain, or are you looking outside to fruit and other hort?
That's a great question. We've done a lot of trial with lots of various other vegetables. So we've successfully dried Brussels sprouts, which worked really well, carrot, baby spinach worked really well as well. We haven't tried a lot of fruit yet, but I dare say carrots also worked fantastically. So yeah, no, there's the drying capability that we've invested in actually has the capability of drying about 7,000 tons of vegetables annually. So, for us, it's not just about drying our own waste, but also really happy to talk to other, vegetable farmers and manufacturers about what we can do with their, stock as well. So, and mushrooms is an interesting one. We just tried that a few weeks ago, which was delicious. Yeah.
Okay. And I think I know who asked this question, but what's the price difference between a bag of Nutrivie crisps and a packet of potato chips?
Yeah, that's I guess depending which aisle you like to shop in. So at the moment we're in the health food aisle. So I think a bag of Nutrivie goodies would maybe set you back around $5.50 when it's full price. So that's 2 serves of vegetables. It's 100 grams worth of snacks. So when you think about, I don't know, the value proposition of what you're actually getting in there and what you can have as an after school treat with your kids, or there's actually I believe there's a lot of value in there. You're not just mindlessly eating emptiness.
Yep.
Gosh, that sounds like I've had a dig at some food manufacturers, please.
No.
I'm just to say that we're really proud of the nutrition we've been able to put in our product. But I don't think you can really compare us to Twisties or something else on the shelf, because there's so much nutrition.
Yeah, but you're not $20 a pack, so it's not a tenfold difference to what others are getting. So yes, there's one question around the drying technology and asking if it was freeze drying or if you have another secret.
Yeah, it's not freeze drying. We love the ability to freeze. We have freeze dried in the past. Unfortunately, it was just cost prohibitive. So our drying is a continuous drying, so it doesn't require, I guess, something to come into a chamber and come out for a certain period of time. It's a free flowing one, which allows us to, continue to feed it. I think from the start of our process to the end might take about 20-25 minutes for a piece of vegetable to go all the way through the process. So it's quite quick in terms of drying capability, but it was important to us to maintain the nutrients and maintain, you know, the color and the taste of a vegetable in our drying process. So we really did look far and wide to find the right one that wouldn't compromise the food.
Yes, and one final question for you is, so when you're drying, you're coming out as pellets and then making it into a powder, or can you create any shape just as the dried material without further processing?
When it comes out of the drying process is separate to the extrusion. So as the extruder would come out of pellets, as pellets essentially, or whatever shape you want it to be, the drying comes out, I'm going to say kind of like, it's almost like little flakes, like it's quite small particles. You know, depending on your food application, you might not want to mill it, you might want to mill it. When we put it in our extruder, we don't mill it because it's fine enough, but we do have milling capabilities on site as well. And, you know, from a 500 micron screen, which gets you to like a fine powder. But yeah, essentially it's pretty versatile. And all of this happens on the farm, by the way. So we could be picking vegetables in the morning, drying them in the afternoon, and then finishing off the day by extruding them. So it all happens on site at the moment, which is, I think, a real advantage from the supply chain and making use of that waste.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. I'll leave. There's more questions there, but I'll let you look at some of those, Raquel. Thank you. Thanks, Deb.
Thanks, Darren, and thanks, Raquel. Very informative presentation, enjoyed by many. So our final speaker is Angela Bracken from Montague, who are based in the Yarra Valley, just outside of Melbourne. So Angela is the marketing lead at Montague, which is one of Australia's most successful and innovative fresh produce businesses. She's over 18 years of experience in developing and building brands, growing businesses, and transforming authentic partnerships into strategic commercial outcomes. Through her presentation, I'm sure you'll see Angela's enthusiasm for sustainability. And Angela, I believe you're also a graduate of La Trobe University. So great to have you present at the webinar, and over to you.
Thanks so much, Deb and Darren, for having me on this webinar. Today I'm here representing Montague, and the privilege to also represent Peters and talk about this fantastic collaboration with such an iconic Australian brand. So just firstly, I wanted to touch on a little bit about Montague and who we are. So essentially, we're one of Australia's largest fruit producers. We're third generation, family owned, and we've been on this land here in Narre Warren, which is right next to Listerfield Park, about 50 minutes from the city, for 75 years now. Just in 2021, we opened up a beautiful restaurant overlooking the orchards, fresh produce store, and we're very much passionate about education. So we run pick your own fruit tours and orchard tours, and also production facility tours where we can really show consumers, corporates, and educational institutions how fruit is grown, teach them technical knowledge, and really show them the some of the skills and understand, you know, how long it actually takes and the amount of effort our growers and orchard teams put into growing fruit. Montague is a global company. We do have an office in Shanghai as well, and export to various countries, including Vietnam and Thailand. So first, I wanted to take everyone through, I'm coming at this particular topic today from a slightly different perspective from the other fabulous speakers. I'm really presenting today the collaboration and how we came together with this particular product, and hopefully to encourage people to think outside the box and take that plunge and really look into new product development with different companies and encourage everyone to lean on different expertise. So taking a step back, looking at the food waste, we know that in Australia, 7.6 million tonnes of food waste ends up in landfill each year. So this is about 312 kilos per person. And if you're looking at a household budget, it's about $2,000. So it's a significant issue in Australia. layering this with the consumer insights that we know and the trends we see, consumers are more health conscious. They are seeking products that are better for their well-being, gut, mental health, and of course, fitness. But they're also wanting products and services that mean something, that actually stand for something, and the brands that have a social impact. 33% of Australians are choosing to buy from brands they believe are doing socially good. And COVID and even post-COVID has certainly demonstrated the desire for Australian grown and Australian made products. With the current inflationary environment, we know value is critical. Value is absolutely critical across no matter what price bracket and income bracket we're looking at. But consumers are still wanting taste. They're still wanting flavour. So the balance in the purchasing decision of value, taste, better for you, better for the planet, we saw an opportunity to bring all of these elements together. Food waste in Australia, as I've mentioned, is 7.6 million tonnes. Now, Montague recognised that with stone fruit, we were seeing a higher amount of wastage. Apples is a large part of our business, and we predominantly grow apples and have the exclusive license for brands such as Jazz and Envy in Australia and Ambrosia, just to name a couple. But with stone fruit, it is more perishable. So once it's picked from the tree and 100% hand-picked, we only have about 10 days until really it needs to be on the shelf and sold through major grocery and independents. So what Montague identified is that unfortunately there was 200,000 tonnes of plums wasted each year. 200 tonnes, 200,000 kilos. So a lot of this fruit is and was edible. It was graded out for imperfections. Sometimes the fruit hasn't reached the shelf or hasn't been sold quick enough. And then there's also other elements that come into effect and really have detrimental effects for stone fruit, such as hail. The wet weather end of last year caused a large amount of the crop to be pulled from the tree. And also we have issues such as hail damage as well. So Montague really looked for a way to repurpose the plums in particular. Apples are a lot easier to repurpose because the entire apple and core can go into the blender and there's really minimal waste. And we also have a market for juice and produce our own ciders and sparkling. But plums is a little bit trickier, and we do have the kernel in the middle. So that hard seed in the middle also means that each plum needs to be de-stoned. So we identified the issue. We approached the Cooperative Research Centre, and then we joined forces with RMIT University, who conducted a study on the plum, imperfect plum, I should say, and looked at various consumable products. So a sorbet and a jam and a few different areas. And essentially Montague went away and researched and then determined that the sorbet was a really viable, healthy option that we could present to consumers and to a wider market. So through our partnership with Food Bank, we joined forces with Peter's Ice Cream, and through Rowan Little, our Chief Innovation Officer, he really kicked off the project with Peter's. So the imperfect plums, that was, we had the concept, we had the imperfect fruit, but Peter's had the skills and the expertise in frozen goods. So Peter's worked on the product back and forth, ensuring that we were looking at most minimal intervention, and we were also adhering to consumer demands such as gluten-free and dairy-free as well. So Peter's and Montague developed a delicious frozen treat that is on the healthier side, good for you. So the product, This we needed a retail partner for. So approaching Woolworths ranged this product in the frozen section, and we're very proud of the product because of the genuine story behind it. From the new product development with Peters, we genuinely rescued 50,000 tonnes of plums that were otherwise destined for landfill. The plums are premium Montague plums, and the plums themselves usually are positioned at a high price point. So it's quality produce that has gone into this to make a delicious treat for families, but really all ages. From a branding and marketing perspective, Montague are thrilled to have this in market as it encourages people to try plums who haven't tried them, and it's reaching people and introducing them to the category in a new way. So, you know, many people remember plums from their grandmother or grandparents' days, and that's the last time they may have had a plum. But plums now are so different. We've got new generation plums that are sweet and firm and juicy. So this was a different way for us to provide, you know, that quality plum into the product. So as I say, available at Woolworths, and also we do have a few available at our store just locally here in Narre Warren. The media coverage was fantastic. What we found is that there's genuine interest with brands that are actively trying to make a difference to reduce that food waste. We launched a collaborative multi-channel marketing launch across digital, influencers, out of home, as you can see in that example there on the top left, and also released a video which is available online. So a lot of trade picked it up, but then a lot of interest as well from lifestyle media and also the ABC. So overall, it was a really successful launch, and the product's available now in the frozen section. We need to continue to work on that brand awareness and really providing the story behind Rescue Pops, because it is more than just a frozen delicious fruit sorbet. It's you know, a genuine way to rescue some plums that otherwise we would have paid to go into landfill. So on that note, I just want to let you know, if you've got any questions or would like more information, please feel free to reach out. And hopefully some of you can come and visit us, or if you've got any other ideas or collaborations, we're always looking for more opportunities. We've got a few other products in the pipeline, actually looking to repurpose our fruits, because we do have a range from apples, stone fruits, cherries, citrus and grapes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Angela. I've been asked one question: what was the biggest challenge in bringing the ice cream to life? And you're only allowed one challenge.
Only one challenge. Oh, now that's a tricky one. Looking at the overall project, I would say ensuring that we've got the most amount of fruit and balancing the fruit and the flavour with minimal intervention, which really was the Peters innovation team and their production team, which did a fantastic job. But it was quite a balance. After the destoning, of course, the fruit did have to be destoned and then sent to Peters.
Great. And that, I mean, if you've mentioned cherries as well as another area that you're looking at, so that destoning is going to be an issue there as well. Would that be right?
That's right, yeah. So we grow cherries mostly in Tasmania, but cherries is definitely, well, all stone fruits, anything with that kernel, which is harder and can't go through a blender or a machine. It's much more difficult. You do need a particular machine to process that. As I said, versus apples, it's so easy. Even if you think at home, you know, with apples, you can throw so much more into your blender and add to smoothies, yet stone fruit is a little bit more messy. And there's also that sensitivity with time as well.
Yeah. And another question here, which I think you did answer, but just to be clear, the plums that ended up in the rescue pops, they would have gone off to landfill?
That's right, yeah.
So that's obviously a fantastic result in terms of the food waste and another revenue stream for Montague. The other products that you're looking at, I'm not sure if you can answer this, would they be through another third-party manufacturer bringing those to market as well, or do you see an opportunity for Montague to get into the manufacturing space?
Oh, interesting question. We are looking to release new products through specialists. So Montague are experts in growing fruit. We've been doing it for 75 years. So we're well versed in fruit, but we recognise that we're not experts in ice cream or sorbets or jams. So we are actively going to those that are and then work with them. So we're not interested in sort of diversifying our expertise. We're really looking to, if anything, any diversification is to broaden into new categories such as grapes.
Great, and I think that's interesting. There, it's a very much it's an ingredient to somebody else to use, but you need to work with that end users, in this case, Peters, the people who get make the value-added product, and then the research that you had to do along the lines with RMIT and testing different potential products from that one resource.
Absolutely, Darren. And it was really such a collaborative approach where we were all on the same level. We were all coming at it as equals, and it really was a partnership connecting the two companies. And of course, with, supporting Food Bank as well. And Peters are donating to Food Bank, and Montague do through different programs. But, we were all very mindful that it was a partnership, because if one party tried to sort of overtake the other, it just wasn't going to work. It was quite a back and forth in terms of branding and all of those kind of intricacies. But if you put the time in, it's definitely worth it. And there's so much opportunity out there looking at the food waste. I think it's just a matter of seeking perhaps, different ways and partnerships that are unexpected.
Yeah.
This isn't a predictable partnership, but it's, such a beautiful product.
Yeah, fantastic. Deb, that's all the time we've got for those questions. Thanks. Thank you, Angela.
Yeah. Thanks, Darren, and thanks, Angela. Great, again, another great presentation. So just to wrap up, so thank you all for attending today. So La Trobe and CSIRO are continuing our webinar series. Our next scheduled one will be currently scheduled for the 13th of July with a focus on the behaviour aspects of waste. We invite you to connect with all today's speakers. If you would like to follow up any further details with them, please feel free to do so, or through Darren or myself. And finally, I'd just like to let you know about the National Food Waste Summit, which is still over a year away, but if you have an interest and want to be involved in it, please get in touch with the organisers and put it in your diary to save the date. So finally, thank you to all our speakers, Dan Yang, Raquel and Angela, and thanks to Lauren and Olga and Hope in the background for enabling the webinar to run smoothly. And to my colleagues, Ingrid Appelquist from CSIRO and Veronica Borrett and Darren Coomber from La Trobe, who all play a key role in developing this webinar series. So we look forward to seeing you all at the next event. So thank you all for making time to attend. Thank you.